And looking back on your life, your early career, what would you unlearn today if you had to go back and do it all again?
What would I unlearn?
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting question. I would unlearn the fear I had of getting in front of people. And that may sound strange that I've presented over 5,000 events in 31 countries, but that wasn't something that I aspired to do back then. A little of my background, I'm a high school dropout about halfway through the 10th grade. And I think part of the reason I dropped out, English was my worst subject. And I didn't like my English teacher. She didn't like me. And I just didn't like school after about the eighth grade. So I didn't care if I got an F or a D or whatever. I didn't care what my grades were. But, I learned a little bit there. In the ninth grade, I learned in shop class. We built a home, so I learned all of the trades, which is kind of nice. If I have a little electrical outlet that's not working, I know how to fix it, which is easier than calling an electrician or trying to find one that'll come out. So, um, but I've had two jobs. I pumped gas, and I worked in a factory on an assembly line. And then I got introduced to a direct sales company, and I was a distributor in that company. And Jim Rohn was the trainer, so that's where met Jim. Nobody knew who he was at the time except people within that company. And then later, that company closed down about 3 years into it. First year, I lost everything I owned. The second year, I made my first $1 million between that company and another opportunity presented as a result of that company. And then anyway, they closed down, and Jim Rohn and I connected up, and I started promoting him. Um, and at the end of the first year, we're doing so much business that he couldn't keep up with all of it.
Wow.
Anyway, long story short, kind of forced me into speaking, and I started doing a little bit at a time, presentations and in offices and things like that. And then that phased into bigger and bigger things. Here I am 45 years later,
And
here.
doing it I remember when we were speaking a couple of weeks ago before we decided to do the podcast, and had to go and, as I say, walk a very long way, and you knocked on a door and they gave you an opportunity, and then that opportunity turned into selling so many products and as you said, the following year was making 1 million.